work he's called taken from his album Game. I'm Duncan Strauss. This is Talking Animals. Our website is talkinganimals.net. It's nearly time to speak with today's guests. Rae Radloff, Paul Manners, Brian Hall and his dog Dozer. As I mentioned earlier, all three, well, four really, are involved with Pit Bulls for Patriots, a Gulfport-based program that pairs veterans suffering post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, with Pit Bulls rescued from a probably grim fate at an animal shelter. Training is provided for both men and dogs, and then these Pit Bulls become assistance dogs for the veterans, promoting profound healing and much improved lives for all parties. But the folks in the studio here can explain it much better than I can, so with a reminder that we invite you to join the conversation by calling 813-239-9663 or emailing us at dj@wmnf.org. Let's welcome Julie Rae, Paul, Brian Hall, and Dozer to Talking Animals. Welcome, everyone. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. So much I want to touch on with each of you, including you, Dozer, wherever you've gone. Oh, he's over there. All right, cool. But this is one of those instances where I think we'd be really well served by starting at the beginning. So, Paul, maybe you could tell us how Pit Bulls for Patriots was created.
Well, Pit Bulls for Patriots was founded by me, my wife Margie, and our dog Layla. We were involved with dog rescue. We started with small dogs, and then over a period of time we sort of gravitated to Pit Bulls because they're the dogs that are about the hardest to rescue. They need it the most. I guess you could say that they're the underdogs of the dog rescue world, and we wanted to help the underdogs. And Margie has a anxiety disorder, which is not the same as PTSD, but it's kind of similar. And she discovered that she was really only comfortable when she was around dogs. And so we actually trained our dog Layla as a service dog for Margie. And that changed her whole life.
So, how so, Paul? I mean, I take it from what you're kind of alluding to, and you can only say as much as you're comfortable, that your wife maybe wasn't as comfortable going out and about. I don't know if it was agoraphobic or anything like that, but it sounds like there were some hints of those kinds of...
Exactly, that sort of thing, Duncan.
Okay.
And it's not something that she always had. It's something that came onto her, and she lost capacities that she had, similar to what happens to veterans in combat or other situations.
Sure.
And with Layla by her side, she discovered that she was able to do things that she had not been able to do for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, we lived kind of near Bay Pines VA Hospital, and we became aware of the huge number of veterans who were coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. Approximately 20% are diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And we thought that the kind of help that Margie had received from Layla was something that could also help some of these veterans. We were also aware, because of our rescue background, that there were all these Pit Bulls being euthanized at Hillsborough County Animal Services. And we knew from Layla that Pit Bulls can be service dogs. So the idea was born of putting together the rescued dogs with the veterans, working with the veterans, and actually training them to train these dogs to be service dogs for themselves.
Wow. Well, that is a great combination. And so when was this? I mean, because I get the sense it's moving quickly.
It's quite new, and it's moving quickly. We conceived the idea around the first of the year. We took our first veterans into the program the end of April, started classes in May. So we've been having classes for about 2.5 months. Brian and Dozer were one of the very first dog handler teams to be in the program. And we've just been growing from there. We've had probably maybe close to 20 veterans now who've attended at least one class. And in our class last night we had 11 people. So it's moving. It really is moving rapidly.
And so even though it's relatively new, so if there was 20 vets that have come and 11 at last night's meeting, I mean, how many are enrolled directly in the program, or does it not even work that way? I mean, how do they start on the path of ultimately being paired with a dog, and how many of those are there in the program at the moment?
Well, when veterans come into the program, they attend classes and they work with all the dogs. Now we are constantly getting dogs from Hillsborough County Animal Services. That's where we get all our dogs from the shelter. And there's no shortage of dogs.
Sure.
So as we get the dogs from the shelter, we don't put them directly with a veteran. They go into a training transition home.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Julie Rae is currently fostering Mayday.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of our dogs, and she brings Mayday to class. All of our dogs come to class, and the veterans get to work with all the dogs that we currently have in the program. That's a chance for them to start seeing how it is to be with dogs, and also to see if they begin to form a bond, a special bond with one dog,
Mm-hmm.
who will ultimately become theirs.
Okay, so there's sort of a social, like a singles mixer of sorts between the vets and the dogs, and ultimately over one or more of those socials, there starts to be a more direct. This dog and this vet really seem to be connecting and hitting it off, and then from there, typically, I guess, then that would be the ones that would be further trained and that relationship will be developed.
It is exactly like that. And we continue, we have, as veterans come into the program and new dogs come into the program, it really is a lot like a mixer, and the group of veterans that's together really functions as a group. That's in the class to support each other through what they're going through.
Sure, and I know you described kind of the evolution, and it came sort of directly from your own experience and with Margie. But I mean, was there ever any discussion, even though it's relatively new, or debate even internally or otherwise about pit bulls or about other dogs beyond pit bulls, or was it always like, hey, this is exactly the right thing because the pit bulls are so neglected in shelters and otherwise, and kind of get this bad rap, so let's make it focused on pit bulls?
Well, 70% of the dogs at Hillsborough County Animal Services are pit bulls.
Wow.
So, that is kind of what we have.
Mm-hmm.
HCAS also has a really innovative program which was started by volunteer Dwayne Bryant, where he has assembled other volunteers to work with dogs in the shelter and begin their training. So it's really, we're partnered up with them in that gives us a chance to observe these dogs over a period of time. They start to get their basic training at HCAS, and then when they've completed that and they're able to pass, they're training toward passing the American Kennel Club's Canine Good Citizen test.
Okay.
So when they pass their test, at that point is when we pull them into our program. So this is what we have, is we have some pit bulls who are canine good citizens, and that's why
Sure.
we use them. They work, they bond very well with people, they're very loyal, they're very trainable, and the bad rap that they have is really not something that they deserve.
Right. Well, no, I couldn't agree more. We've done some shows and parts of shows on that, and we'll get into more of that maybe as the show unfolds. And of course, we just heard Dozer doing a good shake, it sounded like, and I think he was responding affirmatively to what Paul was saying. So, okay, so they get through the Good Citizenship program, and then how long is the Pit Bulls for Patriots program before they're sort of considered, ready to sort of be living on their own?
It's nominally 6 months.
Okay.
And we really work closely with the veteran and dog during that period of time. Now, people advance at different rates, and some people can pass. There's various levels of testing that we do to make sure that the dog is really capable of doing the job and well trained to do the dog, like public access testing, and also we train the dogs to do specific behaviors that help each veteran with their own disability issues.
Okay, so it's kind of customized to that particular.
Totally customized.
Okay.
But generally, normally about 6 months.
Okay.
And veterans are usually in the program for a little while before they go home with a dog. But then they bring their dog to class each week, and
Sure.
Our trainer Amanda Hanson also does private individual classes with all the veterans on issues that are particular to them.
Well, as a matter of course, or just if something, an issue kind of arises with the pair?
Well, both. I mean, as a matter of course, those
Okay.
issues are always arising.
Okay, I see. All right, well, this is Talking Animals. If you just tuned in, we're speaking with Paul Manners and others momentarily about Pit Bulls for Patriots, which pairs rescued pit bulls with veterans suffering from PTSD. If you'd like to join the conversation, ask a question,